مشاهدينا في كل مكان، اهلا بيكم. احنا معاكم النهارده داخل سفارة جمهورية المانيا المتحدة. لقاءنا اليوم مع سعادة السفير يورجن شولتز، سفير جمهورية المانيا المتحدة لدى جمهورية مصر العربية، عن ابرز المحطات الدبلوماسية لسعادة السفير وعن الشعب الالماني بعاداته وتقاليده. هيكون هذا اللقاء، فابقوا معنا وتابعونا. مشاهدينا في كل مكان، بيسعدنا ان يكون في ضيافتنا اليوم سعادة السفير يورجن شولتز، سفير الجمهورية الألمانية المتحدة لدى جمهورية مصر العربية. Your Excellency, please allow me first to thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be with you.
Your Excellency, at the beginning, we usually ask about your diplomatic career before coming to Egypt. So can you please tell us more about it?
Yes, of course. I don't want to go into too many details, but my last posting before I came to Cairo was that I was 4 years German ambassador to Ankara in Turkey. And before that I was 4 years our DPR, our Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations in New York. And that was a time when Germany was at the Security Council as a non-permanent member for 2 years. So I also have experienced that work in the Security Council, which was very, very interesting and very important, obviously. And before that, I spent some 16 years in Berlin, a long time, mostly in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Western Balkans, Iraq, security policy. And then I also in that time spent 5 years in the Chancellery, working for Madame Angela Merkel as Chancellor in the foreign policy team. And before that, I had 5 years at NATO in the international staff, where I worked in Brussels. And before that, that was my first foreign posting. I was posted to Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan.
Oh, Your Excellency, this is the first time in the Middle East for you.
Yes. If you don't include Turkey in the Middle East, then this is the first time in the Middle East.
We usually mean by the Middle East Egypt and Saudi Arabia, Emirates, these areas. Yeah.
I know, but of course there are many different definitions of the Middle East, and that's why I'm saying if yeah, it's the first time in the Middle East if you define it like this. Yes.
How do you see it until now?
Well, it's a fascinating post. I'm very happy to be here. Of course, I'm here in very depressing times politically. If we see what is happening in Gaza, what is happening in Sudan, these are terrible developments, and these are particularly challenging times, of course, for diplomacy, for politics. Having said that, it is also for an ambassador an extremely challenging but also important time to be here. So I also, on the one hand, it is saddening to see what is happening, if you see the tragedies that we have to witness every day. On the other hand, you know, you're working in an important place, and you can try to at least contribute to making a small difference to make things better, and that's also very rewarding.
Your Excellency, our second question, normally it's about the country itself. So about Germany, can you please tell us more about its nature of the country and the position in the map? What distinguishes the country in as a geographic nature?
Well, Germany is in the heart of Europe, in the middle of it. We have many neighbors, more than Egypt. Some small ones, some big ones. And if you ask me about the geography in general, I could talk for some hours about it, but let me put it very briefly. Basically, in the north of our country, you have the sea, you have the Baltic Sea, you have the North Sea, wonderful bodies of water. In the south, you have the mountains. It's a very mountainous areas. If you go down to Bavaria, the Alps, the pre-Alps, and all this. And in between, you have a lot of woods and wonderful cities and a lot of culture.
Your Excellency, Germany have a rich history. So in your opinion, what cities in Germany is the main thing that represents the culture and the historical heritage of Germany?
Well, you know, in Germany we have a tradition of regional diversity. So you cannot say, I cannot say there are 1 or 2 or 3 cities that represent Germany. Because then all of my compatriots would write very nasty letters to me and say, why have you not mentioned my city? Why have you not mentioned my region? And they would be right in doing that, because Germany is very diverse. The north in Germany is very different from the south. The, let's say, Rhineland area along the River Rhine is very different from other parts. Then the kind of part that is closer to Belgium and France and the west of our country is different again. I'm coming from a region that is called the Ruhr area. This is the former steel and coal country, region of Germany. Now this has changed because we don't do so much coal and so much steel anymore, but this used to be that kind of region. And if you go to the east of our country, it's different again. So if you have Weimar, Dresden, Leipzig, in very important and wonderful cities in the former East, the former GDR, these are also important cities. So it's not, I think in Egypt it's a bit easier to answer. You have one capital that is very clearly the capital with the most populous population, which is the biggest city in Germany. You have many smaller or bigger cities, but they all have their own importance and all have their history, really. So it's very hard to name a few. If I would just name a few by way of example, I would talk about Berlin, of course, our capital, which has a very rich history, very interesting city, historically speaking, too, which is a totally different city, totally different atmosphere, totally different history, different way people speak. Even the language is very different in the north and the south and the west. Then we have important cities like Hamburg, Düsseldorf, Cologne, many others, Stuttgart, Leipzig, Weimar. Chemnitz is now this year the European capital, cultural capital, so to say. There's always one city that is designated cultural capital, that's Chemnitz these days. So I could go on and on and on. And if I would just mention those, probably the people in my hometown will write me nasty letters if I don't mention my hometown Gladbeck.
Can we speak
where I'm
about
coming from, which is also a wonderful city, by the way. Most people don't know it. I recommend to go there.
So, Excellency, can we talk more about the people if we're gonna really want all the viewers to know the German people? So, what can you tell us about their traditions and customs, and of course, and their the rule how they make in their houses and their homes, what they inherit, the family inherit to their children, and so on?
Well, I think there are some stereotypes about Germans and German families and households, that they are very punctual, that discipline plays a very big role, structure, sustainable, predictable behavior, rules, a rules-based way of communicating and of acting. And I think these are stereotypes, but there is still a certain truth in that. This is a little bit the German DNA, I would say. Maybe not to the extent anymore that it used to be 30 or 50 years ago, but at the same time, yeah, I think there is a certain Germanness about the Germans. And this is who we are, and this is how we are. Of course, things change, and everybody is different, and every individual behaves differently. But if you just compare, let's say, national behaviors and stereotypes, there's this German way of doing things. I think we are quite precise. I think we are pretty hard-working people, and we like our things to work well. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why our engineers, our entrepreneurs, our business people are pretty good in producing fine pieces of machinery and equipment.
Allow me to take from your words, Your Excellency, and say you are a hard worker people, and go to the economy. The German economy is one of the tops in the world. So can you please tell us what distinguishes the economy, the German economy, and how could you stay on the top for so long like this?
Well, I think this is not a question that I can answer with one sentence. This is, of course, a mix of factors that lead to the, let's say, success stories of the German economy. We also have some issues, we have some challenges. That's also part of the truth today. But in general, you're right, we are a very successful economy. We're the third largest economy in the world. And we are a country that has no natural resources. We don't have oil, we don't have gas. We have basically been able to get to that position by hard work, by a lot of innovation, by a lot of high extent of efficiency, and of course by a few things that are very special to the German economy.
And I think also the education field.
The education is strategically, critically important. The education is absolutely important, and we, for example, have many different ways of educating young people. But what is very important for business is that we have what we call the dual system for people in technical jobs and areas. So that means that young people, after they leave school, they go to a certain school and go, let's say, 2 or 2.5 days and learn the, let's say, theoretical side of the business. And then they go for 2 or 2.5 days to a company and do the practical side of the business at the same time. So in a week, you have basically half of the week in a company where you see how things are really working, and you're half of the week in school and learning the bigger context of what you're doing. And I think that's a very important. That's a
so
very important.
They learn and get a practice at the same time.
Yes.
Learning and practicing.
Both, and that's very crucial. Yes.
Your Excellency.
And maybe if I can add one point.
Yes, of course.
I think many of your viewers are probably familiar with some of the big German companies. I don't want to name special names, but I think everybody knows the names of some big German car manufacturers or businesses who do, energy things and so forth. But these big companies, they're important for our economy, but they're only a small fraction of our economy. 90%, on the other hand, of our economy are small and middle-sized companies, what we call the Mittelstand, the middle companies, 90%. And these 90% of the small and medium-sized enterprises, this is really the backbone of the German economy. And this is really the secret of our success.
This is the first time to know this secret. It's very, for us, it's very
I
important.
share it with you and your viewers. It's, we are open. Here's the secret. No, it's not a secret anymore.
Because, of course, this kind of secrets is something we can use it in here in Egypt, especially because we maybe we're not, we are aiming for a big industries and things like this, but of course the small industries, if it's this value, like your Excellency just said, it means that they are really very important to have an eye or put more eye and push more.
These are often very relatively small companies, 50 people, 100 people, maybe 200. They're often family-owned and family-run businesses, and they often go back many generations. And they often are very specialized. For example, I just read about an example where, I don't want to name the company, but people in China order special screws from that German company, which is a relatively small company. Why do they do that? Because this is the only company in the world. They're specialized on that for decades.
They have a great reputation.
And they have a great reputation, but they also have the technical qualification that they can produce at the same quality big numbers of those screws. And they seem to be the only one in the world who can do that, which is quite interesting.
I would like to know more about the role of women in Germany.
In Germany, women represent half of Germany, half of our population, half of our society. And needless to say how important that is. When it comes to the role of women, I would say we have made a lot of progress in the last decades, because women today very naturally are at the top positions, leadership positions in politics, in business, in culture, in media, and so forth. For example, we had Angela Merkel. She was 16 years the chancellor of our country, and I would say very successfully so. Or our former defense minister, Ursula von der Leyen, is now heading, is president of the EU Commission today. So these are good stories. But having said that, we are also aware that we made some progress, but that we are not where we want to be. We do not have reached the level of, let's say, equal chances for men and women. So there's still some areas where we need to get better. and where we have to make sure that women have the same chances and the same fair conditions than men. And we are not bad, but at the same time, we are not quite happy with where we are yet, and we have to still work on that and get better.
Your Excellency, I knew that you have a certain program to support the youth in Germany. So can you give us headlines about how you support the youth in Germany in their education and in their innovations and future?
Well, I think we already touched a little bit on that. Education is, of course, of strategic importance. I mean, what better things can we do for our young people than to give them a great education? And that's what we're trying to do. And I think in Germany, I'm not saying everything is perfect, but I think you basically have good chance as a young person to get education. Education is also not, let's say, compared to other countries, very expensive. It's usually more or less free, and with very few exceptions. So everybody has the chance to, if you're interested, if you're hardworking, if you want to use that chance of getting a good education, you can do that in Germany. And there are some good examples. Nobody in Germany will ask you what your parents did for a job when you apply for a job. That is of no interest to people. Everybody looks at your qualification. Where did you go to school? How did you do? And if you're good, then you have every chance to advance and go in the direction you want. So I think this educational backing the system of educational opportunities, that is of absolutely strategic importance, because, as I said, we don't have natural resources in Germany. What is our resource? What is the most important thing we have? People, minds. And young
so
people are very important. Yeah, we invest in people because that's the only thing we have.
Your Excellency, if we went back to the tourism section, can I ask you about the most popular tourist destination in Germany? In your opinion, of course, you said there is every city. In every city, there is something very special. But I want the main.
Well, you know, I would not say this is the main, but I think the numbers speak probably for themselves.
Yes.
So you will see that that, for example, the Oktoberfest in Munich is a very popular event, and many millions of people go there every year in the fall to enjoy what is happening at the Oktoberfest. If you look at the Rhine area, you will see that Carnival is a very important thing for many tourists. Many tourists love to be part of the German way of celebrating Carnival. But then there are, of course, many important cities, sites. Many tourists come for reasons of history. We have great cities, we have old cities, we have medieval cities, we have also very special cities. So many people come to see that. Then some people come to see the castles in Germany. We have also great castles along the Rhine, in the Bavarian region. We have wonderful castles, and some people think these are almost fairy tale-like castles, and they were built to look like fairy tale castles there. So millions of people come every year to visit that. I could go on and on and on. I can only say, if you have an interest to go to Germany, there are so many plenty of things to see. I have not been able to see them all.
Santi, thank you so much for this interview, but allow me to have a chance to have another interview to talk about the history of the relations between Egypt and Germany.
With my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
مشاهدينا في كل مكان، وبكده انتهى لقائنا مع سعادة السفير يورجن شولتز سفير الجمهورية الألمانية المتحدة لدى جمهورية مصر العربية. تحدثنا عن التاريخ الخاص بجمهورية الجمهورية الألمانية المتحدة، وأيضا تحدثنا عن المحطات الدبلوماسية الخاصة بسعادة السفير قبل مجيئه إلى مصر. بتمنى أشوفكم في حلقة جديدة إن شاء الله، وإلى اللقاء.